get started. We've just connected to Jenny Rowena. I'm sorry you're seeing multiple images of me because we were not able to use the technology to squash my image down to the corner. So it says press escape.
Oh, that was just to get rid of the full screen. You're
okay. So here we are in the, so Jenny, can you see the room or can you only see me?
I can see you.
Okay, so I'm sorry, but there is a room full of people here. Some of them are members of Penn International Perth. And we also want to welcome people who are joining us online. As you know, Jenny, we have sent this out internationally, and we have got people joining us from Sydney and from elsewhere in the world. It has gone out to various Asian pens. And now may I introduce Jenny Rowena to all the people who are joining us, whether online or you're here in person. Jenny, thank you so much for joining us. Jenny Rowena is an academic. She is a lecturer in English at Miranda House. As you might be able to tell from that name, Miranda House, it is one of the very elite and old colleges in Delhi. Jenny also happens to be married to another academic whose name is Dr. Hani Babu. Dr. Hani Babu is a linguist, and his professional work, his PhD and his other writing is on minority languages. And because it's on minority languages, he has become involved in broader issues to do with marginality and marginal communities in India. So we were really grateful to have Jenny join us because there are a number of difficult conversations that we need to have about India. And we will focus on two of them today. One is the case of Modi's political prisoners. While Modi is strutting the global stage as the leader of the world's largest democracy, he's also putting in prison increasing numbers of people whose only fault has been to do their job as writers and as thinkers and as public intellectuals. Jenny's husband, Hani Babu, is one of those public intellectuals and also a senior academic at Delhi University, who has been in prison now for almost 2 years. And I want to break up the discussion in two halves. First of all, Jenny, could I get you to explain a little bit of the context of the immediate political events that led to the imprisonment of some 16 people starting in 2018?
Yeah. Okay, so in 2018, there was this Bhima Koregaon battle celebration that was happening in Maharashtra. Now, this celebration has been going on for a long time, and it is led by Dalits who celebrate this victory that they had in the Bhima Koregaon battle, which happened in 1818. And this has been going on for a long time. And 2018 happened to be the centenary year of this celebration. So this is a huge movement for Dalit groups because it's the time when they gather.
Jenny, I'm just going to have to interrupt you for a minute. People may not know who the Dalits are. The Dalits are the minority castes and tribes in India. Sorry.
Yeah. So they have been celebrated. This is very important celebration because it's a movement for their assertion. So 2018 also happens to be their centenary year. What happened is the day before the celebration, there was a huge program conducted called Elgar Parishad in Maharashtra, which saw 200 organizations from Dalits, other backward classes, and Muslims and Maratha community, all of them came together under this Elgar Parishad, and they asserted their unity and their resolve to fight Hindutva right wing. So because of that, and many important speakers like Ambedkar's grandson, Dr. Ambedkar's grandson, Prakash Ambedkar, also, and political prisoner, people who are political prisoners like Umar Khalid and Jignesh Mevani, who's a Dalit leader from Gujarat, had all come to speak there. So it was a huge event. So seeing the success of this event and also the unity of the marginalized groups that came through in that event, the next day, the Hindu right wing unleashed violence. Next day, that is the day of the Bhima Koregaon battle celebration, January 1st, 2018, they unleashed huge violence against the Dalits who had gathered there in large numbers to celebrate this event, this battle. So then there was a FIR, and not only that, they killed a person as part of the violence. Shops were looted, and cars and other vehicles were damaged, and there was huge destruction. So a Dalit activist, a woman activist, she gave a case against the Hindutva right wing. The police was not ready to do much about it. And she also named the people, Milind Ekbote and Sambhaji Bide, as people who had these right-wing organizations, who were leading these right-wing organizations and who had led this violence. But the police went very slow on it, and they arrested Ekbote in March, sometime in March. But soon, he was let off on bail. Now, what happened is that—
But Jenny, if I can just clarify, because names will not be familiar to this group. Yeah. So just to summarize very quickly, there was a celebration of a 200-year-old battle at which the marginal classes had won. And then the next day, there was a kind of revenge attack by Hindu right-wing people, and the police were didn't take any steps at all. Okay.
Yeah. So then there was another FIR that was launched, which is coming from
an FIR is a
case, like a first investigation report.
An investigation of a criminal case.
Yeah, it's the first investigation report that when you register a case. So another case was registered, but this time by the right-wing groups, blaming the Dalits and Dalit activists for the violence. When they were actually attacked by the right-wing groups, they launched this FIR blaming the right-wing, the Dalit activist groups. And based on this FIR, the police has been arresting people from all over India who had no connection to this event. Like my husband, for example, based on this FIR, in 3 or 4 batches, they have arrested 16 journalists, academics, lawyers, intellectuals, and as you said, public intellectuals, people who have people like Father Stan Swami, who has had a public career of working for the tribal community in India, standing with their struggle. So people like Sudha Bharadwaj, who has been a very prominent lawyer, who has worked for the tribal community in India, Gautam Navlaka, who's a public intellectual, Anand Teltumde, who is also, the son-in-law of Dr. Ambedkar's, Dr. Ambedkar, grandson-in-law, married to his, daughter.
I'll just explain that Ambedkar was a major nationalist leader. So we're just getting into this kind of very confusing Indian politics, which many of you will not have the details of. But if we can just get to Hani's case, because so arrest took place of 16 people who really had nothing to do with the violence, except that these were intellectuals and lawyers who have defended the
rights of marginalized
people. So Hani was arrested right at the end of that process, right?
Yeah, he's the 12th person to be arrested. After him, some more people were arrested. He was the 12th person to be arrested in this. So before the arrest, the police came to our house without a search warrant, like they did in the other cases also. And they did the same thing to the other people also, and raided our house. So they just enter. One morning, they ring the bell, and they're there, like 20, 25 people. with guns and everything. And we are living in an apartment. So they just come into our house. They make us shut the door, take away our phones. I mean, we can't contact anybody. Nobody knows that this is going on. We are just me, my husband, and my daughter, who was in school at that time. She was in the 11th standard at that time. So they just raid our house for 6 hours. And in this 6 hours also, their main concern is about the books in our house. They are videographing all the books. We have all kinds of books. We are both academics, like in your shelf there that I can see. We have all sorts of books. And they also confiscated 2 books which were publicly available. One was available on Amazon and one was available as a PDF. It was available online. So they confiscated these books because it had something to do with Maoism, which is a radical ideology in India, and which is of a banned group. So they consolidated this, confiscated, and they took his computer away. But when they took his computer away, they did not follow any of the electronic evidence protocols, like you have to give us a hash value, which we didn't know at that time. So they had to give us a hash value. They just took it away, like they would take a piece of, like a gun or something, they put it in a plastic cover and took the computer without sealing it anyway, which is not, which will make the evidence, whatever evidence comes from it, as inadmissible. And then months later, next year, in July, they summoned Babu for interrogation, saying that we want to ask you some questions about this case. So he thinks it's just it's an usual summoning, and they just want to, it's a formality. So he just goes, just taking his phone and wallet. That time it was COVID also. He just goes to Mumbai. But once he goes there, they say that in your computer, we have found these 62 documents, which incriminates you, which tells us that you are a Maoist, that you are part of this radical banned group. And so Babu said that I have nothing to do with the documents. I don't know, that those are not my documents. And they themselves admit that these documents were not created in the computer, was never opened in the computer. It's just found in the computer, very conveniently for the police to find it. And then they say that then you give us some other names. Tell us about, some other people who might have put this inside your computer. He said, I never give my computer to anyone, and he refused to blame it on anybody else. They kept pressurizing him to blame somebody else so that they can tighten the case. He refused to do that. In 5 days, they arrested him. And now he has been in jail for 2 years now. And the only evidence against him are these 62 documents. But we have this law called Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, which is called UAPA. We usually call it UAPA. This law makes, the bail conditions very stringent, and it allows the court to look at the police documents and refuse bail till the trial happens. So what is happening is that we cannot argue anything about the documents. We know that, there was also an arsenal. There was an American forensic company called Arsenal. So they had come out with a report on one of the Babu's co-accused, saying that these documents have been planted from outside using a malware called Netwire, I think. So that report has come out, but we can't say this in the court because that will only be seen at the time of the trial. And now the people...
When will the trial take place? Does anybody know?
No. And also it can take years. It can take 5 years. It can take so many years. So till then, and if it comes out then that this is planted, then you're acquitted. So that means you had been in jail for all this time, though you were innocent. Or maybe you have been in jail more than your punishment. So the people in the case have been in jail for 4 years now. And now they have to await trial because of this law, this very problematic law against terrorism called Unlawful UAPA. Okay. So
Unlawful Activities Act.
Yeah.
So just if you go back to the whole group, these 16 public intellectuals and lawyers and journalists who are being held, can you tell us a bit more about them? I mean, we know that 1 or 2 people of that group have actually died.
Yes, yeah.
And they've died in prison.
Yeah. So Father Stan Swami, he was more than 80
He was
years
a Christian. He was a Christian priest, and he was already 80 when they arrested him.
And he had like publicly dedicated his life to the cause. See, Adivasis are having a huge resistance in India against the state to preserve their forest. Their tribal groups were trying to preserve their forest, and he had joined hands with them, and he was assisting them. Like so many Adivasis have also been pushed into prison like this using UAPA.
Adivasis are the tribals.
Tribal.
Sorry.
So so he had given cases against these in support of these tribal people who have been unlawfully incarcerated. So they catch him because for this activity, and they plant documents in his computer also. And he is a 80 plus man. He has Parkinson diseases. When he first went to jail, they even denied giving him a straw. So there had to be a campaign for him to get a straw because his hands were shivering and he couldn't drink from a glass. So his condition really deteriorated in the jail, and then he contracted COVID. So an 80-year-old man with Parkinson's getting COVID should be in a situation of emergency. Again, they denied him medical bail, saying that he's a dreaded terrorist, a UAPA and all that. And eventually people had to go to court to get him hospital attention, to put him in hospital. Then he died of a heart attack in hospital while still a prisoner.
And what about Sai Baba?
GN Sai Baba has been, he's in another case. He's also a political prisoner in another case. He is 90% disabled. My husband actually, they are all from the English department of Delhi University. Sai Baba works in a college. My husband was working in the main department. So my husband actually was part of the defense committee. So it is a defense committee created by, public intellectuals like Arundhati Roy and others are part of that defense committee. My husband also one of them. But my husband used, as an English professor who was close to Sai Baba, used to do a lot of the legwork, like, sending out mails and media, talking to the media, etc. Yeah.
But just because the room here won't know, Sai Baba was another earlier political case, and he was in prison. He was a disabled man. Yes. And in fact, everybody from Arundhati Roy to Noam Chomsky wrote to the Indian government to release him, but nothing has happened. Yes. And again, in his case, there has been no evidence submitted to court to prove his political activities. Yeah, so these people are basically in prison because of what they have said rather than for what they have done.
Yes, yeah.
Right? Yes, so when I was young, and of course that was, a long time ago, I had the notion that I was growing up in a country which was a beacon of democracy in India. And, when the West was absolutely convinced that we had the kind of setup which was different from the other Asian countries, and therefore democracy could flourish. But of course, what has happened since 2014 is that the space for dissent has become narrower and narrower under Modi's government. Do you have a sense of where we are at in India in terms of freedom of speech, the right of people to express themselves?
Yeah, see, actually from the beginning, I feel that the marginal groups in India did not have a great deal. From the beginning, because it was like
marginal groups being the Aboriginal tribal communities as well as the lower caste.
Yeah, lower caste, because we have the caste system which influenced the state, and what we think from the lower caste position is that we had a very Brahminical kind of state from the beginning. But at least nominally there was some, some lip service to democracy and some lip service to certain systems, but the foundational institutions in India have been very monopolized by upper caste groups. And because of this, justice and democracy was not really fully available for all groups. It was never the state that we had a kind of, it didn't percolate down to this thing, though from the outside it looks like a very solid system, and in some sense it is also, but it didn't percolate well. And majority of people were either literate, or poverty levels were illiterate, poverty levels were high, development was very unequal, so hierarchical structures were always there. But what we see is that now it's getting this situation is getting even worse now, with even the last spaces of dissent, resistance, and any kind of resistance to the kind of hegemony that is there is being closed off. For example, if you look at this case itself, this case is actually begins with a resistance group, okay, that the Elgar Parishad group, which consisted of 200 communities from different, including Marathas, who are actually a very dominant group in Maharashtra. All of them came together on a single platform to oppose the ruling government. So this is something that should be allowed in a democracy. And if it was allowed, what would have happened is a kind of resistance which would have overthrown the government, which would have changed the government. That is how democracy works. You make movements, you make a public discourse, you put out your fundamental discontent. Along with that, you kind of organize, mobilize, and change society. That is how democracy works. But that was stopped right away. You just crushed that. You arrested leaders, and then you also arrested all sorts of people who were doing all sorts of social activism all over the country. And think of it, you have an FIR in Maharashtra, and then you keep on adding people from Bombay, other places, Delhi, and everywhere. How is it even legally possible? But the courts are allowing it, and it's just happening here like that. Yeah.
So has there been much attention to these, what in your view and in the view of PEN International are clearly trumped up cases and clearly arrests that shouldn't have happened? Is there much attention to this in the mainstream Indian media?
I think compared with other cases, this case, Bhima Koregaon case, has got a lot of attention. Also because most of the people arrested are, intellectuals. They are placed in universities. They're middle class people. But like for example, UAPA is a law, is a act that has been used against Adivasis also, the tribal groups that I was talking about. 27,000, according to a tribal activist, 27,000 people, Adivasis, are in jail using UAPA. That has not got that much of a mainstream attention. Compared to that, our case has got a lot of mainstream attention, also because they are university professors and middle class lawyers. So I would say that it has gotten attention, but it doesn't help us in any way. Because there is also, like recently Umar Khalid was writing, there is a nominal fairness that is there in English press. Some kind of nominal fairness is given, but in the vernacular press all sorts of rumors are being circulated about this case. So even though in some cases we do get attention, we also have a backlash to that through this regional vernacular press, which just makes up, it's like magical realism. They make up anything they want. So
that's, yeah. So for groups like us, outsiders who want to help, and as you know, we as a group in Perth have taken a particular interest in Hani Babu, and as of course has PEN International taken a particular interest in your husband's case. Is it useful? And I'm sure everybody in this room wants to know, what can we usefully do to help?
I think campaign for the political prisoners, and also against the law that is actually at the root of this problem. Whether it is in other cases, like in the Delhi, there was violence, there was an ethnic cleansing in Delhi, again, where right-wing groups descended on a particular community in Northeast Delhi and started, killing them, setting fire to their houses. The people who organized against it, many of the students who organized against it, many of the students who organized against an act which many people thought was anti-Muslim, they're all in prison now. Students are in prison, journalists are in prison, So I think, and in all these cases, if you see why they are not able to get bail is because of UAPA and its stringent, and its illegal way of keeping people in prison. I think the campaign should also be against UAPA.
So in its latest report, Journalists Without Borders has said that India is probably the world's most dangerous place for a working journalist.
Yeah.
Is that your view?
Yeah, it looks like, because recently in 2020, after my husband was arrested, there was a gang rape of a Dalit girl in Hathras, Uttar Pradesh. And journalists who went to report on that case, they took a cab and went to the place to report on it. So along with the cab driver and some students who also had joined it, like Atikur Rahman and Siddiq Kapan, along with the cab driver, they were all slapped with UAPA, and it was said that they had come there to create unrest. So already there is an unrest. Somebody has been raped there. It's a brutal rape, and the police behaved very badly. They burned the girl's body without the permission of the parents. They did not act appropriately, and the journalists and students had gone there to talk about that, to bring that out, and they were immediately arrested. And for 2 years now, they are in jail.
Oh,
So, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you one or more question, and then I'll throw it open to the group. As you said, you can't see them, but you'll probably be able to hear them, and we can try to work some way of you to answer the questions from the room. So what is the prognosis now? What are you doing in terms of helping these 16 lawyers and academics who are currently in prison under the same rubric? Let's call it Elgar Parishad, because the press is talking about the Elgar Parishad detainees. So let's kind of hear from you about what is being projected, what is going to happen.
No, see, all of them have been, the only way available for us is the legal way. So there is no other way. We can campaign, but if they have to come out of jail, if they have to get justice, the courts have to decide in their favor. So the lower courts and the higher courts have been highly compromised. And also, when it comes to the court, most of the judges are recusing. They're giving some reason and withdrawing from the cases. So almost 10 judges have withdrawn from the Bhima Koregaon case. Five in one Gautam Navlaka's case, and 5 in the other people's case.
I should point out, Gautam Navlaka is a very well-known finance journalist, and he's also one of the people in prison.
Yeah, so the legal system is what is available to us, but it is a very flawed system. It's very time-consuming system, and the lower courts are not giving any kind of justice. For example, 1 month back, I was there in the court. Gautam Navlaka had there were mosquito nets in Gautam Navlaka's cell. And suddenly the prison authorities just takes it away. So he came to the court to ask for mosquito nets, and he was refused mosquito nets. And another inmate that is in the same case, Vernon Gonsalves, he contracted dengue. Dengue is something that spreads through mosquitoes. So this is the level of the courts, that they are refusing mosquito nets when it is, legally, what is a problem in allowing mosquito nets? And then someone gets dengue and they don't even treat him properly. They did not even offer him treatment. You are again, the wife, and who's also lawyer, had to go to the court to get an order. So for everything, newspaper, straw, mosquito nets, we have to go to the court. And most of the time the court is not even ready to hear. So for example, we don't get calls from the prison. We are not allowed any calls from the prison. Like I am in Delhi and my husband is imprisoned in Mumbai. It takes me 1 night to travel to Mumbai by train. Plane is very costly. So we travel by train. So to talk to him, and when I go there also, I get 20 minutes behind. There's a glass door and an intercom. For talking 20 minutes, me and my daughter, we have to take this train overnight, see him, and then come back the same day. There is a petition in court asking for allowing phone calls, but they are not allowing phone calls. So this is a kind of situation. This is a system, and it is in this system that we have to go and ask for justice.
Yeah, sounds disastrous. One final question about Varavara Rao, who is currently being released on medical bail. We have been promoting his poetry insofar as we can, because he's somebody else who PEN International has been very interested in. He is the oldest of the people being held in this group at the moment. Are there particular, given that the oldest member of the group has already died, are there particular health scares for him or any of this group? And is that something that the global community can talk about, write to the Indian government about? Is there anything we can do under those kinds of?
See, Indian prisons are very overcrowded. Like if the prison is meant for 100 people, you have 500 people in the prison. So it's an overcrowded situation, and the crowd is because of under trials, not because of convicted prisoners. 70% of every prison is full of under trials. So all of these people are under trials, and many of them
they're all under trial, but they're not actually prisoners.
They're not convicted. They're not convicted. There is a chance that they will be acquitted. So why are you keeping under trials in prison for so long? Either you keep them for some time and then release them, but you're keeping them for 4 years, 2 years. Many of them are so old. One person has already died. So and these people houses have been raided. They didn't run away anywhere. Babu's house was raided in 2019 September. Then he was arrested in next year. He didn't run away anywhere. If he had to run away, he would have run away. These are not people who are, even a judge said once, these are not people who are going to run away. So they very well know that, but this is a punishment, using UAPA. They know that there is no case. If there is a case, you would immediately convict them. They're not convicting these people because this case is hard to win. There is no real evidence, and even if you win, it will very clearly show it's injustice. So stop this, not allowing bail for people, keeping them in prison as a punishment for socially productive activities, for the good things that they have done. This is very bad for a society. This will destroy a society. Yeah. This is what I have to say. And yeah.
Jenny, thank you very much. I'll just see if there are people who would. Dennis Haskell. Dennis, do you want to come over here so Jenny can see you? It's we'll keep swapping seats. There's not so many of us that we can't do that.
Thank you, Jenny. I wanted to ask whether there was any legal activism from, say, the International Jurists Association, given a problem, obviously, is with this act, doesn't require being brought to trial within a certain period of time after arrest. And it's the kind of repressive act that's been used in other countries too. Vietnam uses it, even places like Singapore and Malaysia have done it. But the International Jurists Association have sometimes been able to bring a lot of pressure. So is there legal activism within India and outside India?
Yeah, some lawyers collectives are involved in giving statements and talking to the government, but I don't know about the International Jurist Association if they have been involved. I don't think so.
Just seems to me that it requires pressure from outside, from lawyers, from the Journalists Association, as well as organisations like PEN. It's only through that kind of collective action that maybe gets other governments involved. And the other thing I want to ask is that this system of repression clearly can only function with a lot of people involved. And is it a kind of entirely Hindu repressive apparatus that, the lawyers, the jail wardens, all the other people who must be involved supporting it, is it really sort of Hindu-based? Is that why it's able to be done?
In India, we see power domination as coming from the upper caste. So we have the caste system. So, and we call it a Brahminical system. So the entire state, as I said in the beginning also, has been always very Brahminical. So even the rights of ordinary prisoners, if you see the prison constitution also, a majority of them are from lower caste and Muslims.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is a Brahminical, Hindu Brahminical system that is at work here, and even in the legal profession, in the courts, it's monopolized by the Brahmins, monopolized by the upper caste groups. So I would say it's a Brahminical system that is oppressive here, Hindu Brahminical system. Yeah.
But sorry, in the past, Brahmins have also initiated a lot of good change in India. They certainly haven't acquiesced in this kind of thing, or it would never have been a democracy. So why are they kowtowing so completely now? Are they frightened?
No, but in the past also, I don't see it like that. Because in the past, we feel that the transfer of power was from the colonizer to the Brahmins.
Mm.
So they were the power, they're the elite groups here. So it was a state made for them, so a democracy that helped them.
Yes, I just have the sense, though, that since Modi's been elected, that India has sort of gone backwards in terms of liberal democracy.
Yeah, yeah. So it has become worse now because now it is very open, out in the open. Earlier it was like couched under liberal, ideas and notions, but now it is right out in the open. And there is no, every institution is going along with it. The media, the courts, every institution is allowed. Even now the, other government institutions are going along with it. They have been able to capture these institutions and work it, make it work for this kind of oppression. That was not so strong earlier. The roots were always there, but it has become very strong.
I have to say, I think the Australian government is going along with it too, because India is part of the Quad, and Modi is part of the Quad, but he's also talking with China and Russia, so he's playing every game.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, Dennis. Anybody else wants to come and talk, to ask a question? Or you can ask from there and I can pull it out if necessary. Rania, you want to come here?
No, that's okay.
Okay. Can you hear her?
I don't know if or you can relay.
Sure. Yeah, I just want to. This is Rania.
Hello. Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
I just wanted to know for you personally, how you balance getting the word out about this and advocating for your husband, and how you balance that with your own fear. You must, have also fear of being swept up in this. And are you afraid of being arrested yourself? And how safe do you feel with us spreading the word about this internationally and in Australia and advocating, versus how much you can speak up within India?
Actually, I'm not afraid because, the worst fears have come true. Now I'm not really afraid. And I think that the more they arrest, the more they will get destroyed, because they can't, carry on doing this. So I think everyone should get arrested protesting against it. So I'm not afraid and I will not stop speaking. And I'm not afraid.
Great. Do you want us to keep going then?
Yeah, of course.
We should be writing to our government for you.
Yeah, fine. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your time tonight.
Okay.
Any other questions? There are some, as you were talking, I was thinking, if we think of people we call Adivasis in India, it's the same word as Aboriginal, the indigenous community in Australia. And you were giving some figures of how more Adivasis are in prison proportionately. And the same is true in the Australian system. There is an imbalance. But I guess Dennis is also right to some extent to say that, perhaps there was more of an institutional balance in the times that predated the Modi government. And the Modi government has, in a sense, solidified and legitimized the rule of Hindus rather than the rule of a at least on the surface, a secular party like the Congress or the Communist Party or whatever the other parties. But that's a kind of a slightly different question. We will, I might call this to an end unless some other people have any questions. Anybody else would like to raise a question? Jenny, is there something that you would, is there a message that you would like to leave with us? What should we be doing? What can we do to best help not just your husband, but this entire group? And of course, you know, what can we do from the outside? There are people who are interested in India, people who have been historically interested in India.
I think campaign and, you know, spreading the information about what is going on, and campaign, and especially a campaign against this law, which is at the core of this, which is what is keeping them in jail. If you look at if you analyze what is really happening, it is this law which is at the core of their arrest, which is legitimizing their arrest, which is allowing the courts to deny them bail, even when they are at the verge, even they are about to die, like in the case of Father Stan Swami. So I think a campaign which is not just, you know, general in nature, like against political prisoners and for political prisoners, but very focused on the law, which will put pressure, because there is a lot of rethink now about draconian laws in India also. So given that, that would really help.
Well, thank you very much. Is there anything else you particularly want us to remember? Otherwise, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for including Hani Babu in this. And yeah.
We will, of course, be thinking of him, thinking of the others in prison. And thank you for giving us your precious time. We know you have a lot of work, not just the teaching work, but also supporting your husband and the colleagues who are in prison. And please give the best wishes from the Perth support community to Hani Babu and to his fellow prisoners in the Elgar Parishad case. Jenny, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Krishna.
It's like you said, Barbara? Yeah.
I have.
I'm just going to